Should the Seattle Seahawks splurge on an expensive nose tackle to anchor their defense? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well today. We're here on Thursday, and the beat goes on. I mean, the beat just started, so of course it's going to go on for a little while here. And today we're moving to another position that I consider to be kind of a code red with the Seattle Seahawks right now. Yesterday we did left guard. Now we are doing nose tackle. And you look at the Seattle Seahawks right now. Last year, their nose tackles were basically Byron Murphy, and Byron Murphy's not a nose tackle, and Jonathan Hankins. And Jonathan Hankins is a free agent. If you consider Jarran Reed to be a nose tackle, it seems like this team doesn't. And beyond that, he's a free agent anyway. So even if he is a nose tackle, he may not be here. Cameron Young is still here, but he's played such a small amount of football over the last couple years, it feels like he's not here. So we probably need to look outside the current team to find a long-term nose tackle. This doesn't have to be a big thing, but it is a thing. The good news is that nose tackles are kind of devalued in the current NFL, which you'll quickly see as we start this little series. These guys do not get paid a lot. Quite honestly, there aren't that many of them. And they're pretty easy to find competency in, honestly, if you need one. Some teams don't even really have one. Maybe they technically have one, but they don't really ask him to do traditional nose tackle things. So that's been one way teams deal with the deficiency. And to be very clear, we're talking about specifically nose tackle. We're not talking about 3-tech. We're not talking about a 2-eye. We're not talking about a 4-eye or anything like that. We're talking about the big guy in the middle. They call them 0 techniques, or they call them 1 techniques. That's what we're getting into here. That's what we're trying to find. So if you wanted to splurge on a nose tackle, it really wouldn't cost that much. These guys tend to go for relatively cheap. So let's go through the options here and see if there's anything we can find that makes sense. And I'm going to go ahead and say right now, there's one guy in this class that is likely to command a significant paycheck. And also keep in mind, most of these players are also capable of playing some 3-tech as well. And that dual value does provide a lot of additional value. Okay, so the first guy we're going to look at here is DJ Jones. This is the crown jewel of the free agent nose tackle market. He's been on the Denver Broncos now for a little bit here. He was on the Niners for a while before then. He was on the Niners the year they went to the Super Bowl in 2019. He's been on Denver these last few years. He has extensive experience at nose tackle. He also has a good amount of experience at 3-tech. So if you get him, you are getting somebody who can provide value in both areas, which is always nice. So you're also going to pay for that, of course, because it seems like he's pretty good at both. He's also played in almost every game over the last several years. Since 2021, he's missed 3 games, and he's started every game he's played since 2019. So there's a certain amount of appeal here. Pro Football Focus thinks he played pretty good in 2024. They thought he was well above average. Nothing stellar, but pretty good. Take a look at the previous year. They weren't quite so high on him, but still somewhere near the middle. Still workable, still providing some stuff that you want to see. And again, given that he's providing dual value as a nose tackle and a defensive tackle, there is going to be a little bit of a premium here in a way that doesn't exist for these other players. Some of them provide dual value, but they don't provide it like DJ Jones does. Now, Spotrac does have a value page for DJ Jones, and it's pretty high, $11.2 million for 1 year. They think this guy's going to get paid a pretty serious 1-year deal. I don't know why he would take a 1-year deal personally. I would imagine that this guy at 30 years old is looking to find like a 3-year deal, even if he has to sacrifice a little bit of money per season. I would expect him to be more like 3 years, 30 million. Either way, I don't think you can justify this as a Seahawks fan. You need a nose tackle. We do need a nose tackle. But either way, even if it's a 1-year deal, if it's a 3-year deal, a 2-year deal, if it's going to be in that $10 to $12 million a year range, even if it's up to like 8 million, I don't think you can justify that. I don't think that this team needs somebody who is providing a ton of value down there at both spots when the 3-tech spot is so well taken care of. You need a guy to be the nose tackle and not too much more than that, probably. You need a guy who can be your nose tackle, and if they can do 3-tech, it's okay. It's fine. But you're not going to pay extra for it because you're probably not going to get much out of it, because between Big Cat and Murphy, you don't need that much of that. So he's going to get paid a lot of money, I imagine, this offseason, but don't think it'll be here. Next guy is Teair Tart. Teair Tart of the Los Angeles Chargers. Not a huge guy, kind of like DJ Jones, but he does have good experience playing nose tackle. And by the way, when I was doing this video series, when I put together this series, I was trying to keep it only to players that have extensive experience lining up as a nose tackle over A-gap. There may be 1 or 2 players out there that have never done it before but can do it very well. That's a little bit dicier to figure out, though, so I'm not going to get into that too much. We're looking at guys that have extensive nose tackle NFL experience. So Teair Tart played in every game last year for the Chargers, anchored the #1 defense in football. Didn't put up monster stats, but nose tackles very rarely do. It's very rare you find a nose tackle that puts up big stats. He's had seasons for the Tennessee Titans in the past that were pretty good as well. Started all 16 games for the Titans in 2022. So good amount of recent experience. 2023 was the season he got traded from the Titans to the Texans, and then he found himself in the Chargers. Pro Football Focus thought he was great in 2024. One of the big reasons why that defense was so good. 76 PFF grade, one of the highest ranking defensive linemen in football. Year before that, not nearly so rosy. Of course, he was on, the Titans for most of the year. 54 overall. We don't really like to see that, but this is a guy who is fully capable of giving you quality reps at nose tackle. And unlike DJ Jones, it's not going to be some massive premium you pay because he's also a really good 3-tech. Teair Tart is projected at 1 year, 5.1 million approximately. Let's call it 1 year, 5.1 million. He's just about to turn 28, so he is in his prime, theoretically. And honestly, I would expect this guy to get more like a 2-year deal, maybe a 2-year, $10 million deal. Prove it, and then he can catch one more significant deal when he's 30. That's how I imagine this plays out. But either way, you're getting more value here. And I don't think as a Seahawk, you're missing out on much with the downgrade. Because again, you just need somebody who can occupy the nose tackle role. And Teair Tart at 5.1 million is probably going to give you some pretty good value for that. So this I'm a little more amenable to. Still not convinced it's necessary. Still not convinced it's the right move. For whatever it's worth, my suspicion is that McDonald longs for a bigger nose tackle, like somebody who weighs 330 pounds or more, and Tart, and for that matter, DJ Jones, they're not that. I could be wrong. That's just my suspicion, but I think that would probably put him off wanting to spend over $5 million on one for 1 or even 2 seasons. Next guy is local, Greg Gaines. We might remember this guy if you're a Huskies fan. He was on that Huskies team many years ago. 4th round pick of the Rams. Had good success with the Rams. Found his way to Tampa Bay and kind of fallen off the map a little bit, admittedly. Not nearly as productive statistically as a Buccaneer when you compare what he did with the Rams. Helped the Rams win a Super Bowl, of course, in 2021. Was much more productive as a playmaker in the backfield while he was with the Rams. That's worth noting. 10 total tackles for loss across his last 2 seasons as a Ram. And then the last 2 years, he has 2 combined tackles for loss. And he's played in almost every game. He's only started a few, but he has played in every game. So there's been a little bit of a fall off here. Pro Football Focus, not a fan. 50.5 last year, which was well below average. And then the year before that, 51.7, which was also well below average. You have to go back to 2022 to find a year where PFF thought he was even average, which they did, 59.1, workable. It is worth noting that Greg Gaines played much more nose tackle with the Rams this year than he did in the years since. So it seems to me that Greg Gaines is meant to be a nose tackle, and if you sign him and tell him you're just going to have to worry about that stuff, you're just going to have to worry about A-gap, he probably benefits from it. So I think that the last 2 years, if anything, might depress his value a little bit, and you can get him for cheaper than he should because he's meant to be a nose tackle, and in Tampa Bay, he just hasn't played a lot of nose tackle. So I think that there is some value here that is not immediately apparent. I think this guy is a pretty good player. I think this guy brings a good amount to the table. He is another guy that, as you can see, is not a big nose tackle. That might not be McDonald's jam. We don't know. And we don't know how flexible he is regarding that if it is his jam. Now, Spotrac does not have a market value page for this guy. And it is worth noting that his last contract was just about $4 million cap hit for the year. And Tampa Bay gave him some void years to kind of spread that cap hit out a little bit. But if I had to guess, I would say that Greg Gaines is going to get somewhere around 1 year, $4 million at most. Could be less because he hasn't been that notable the last couple of years. You might be able to get him for like 1 year, $3 million. I'm going to say 1 year, $4 million because I think that's what he's worth. I would probably do that. If you needed to do that, if you felt like it was the only way you were going to get a quality nose tackle for 2025, yeah, I think he's probably worth about $4 million, as long as you let him stay in his lane. And on this team, he almost certainly would be able to stay in his lane. The last guy I want to look at is Bobby Brown III. This is a bigger guy. This guy weighs a lot more than the previous three guys. We looked at another Ram, another guy who was on the Super Bowl team, another fourth-round pick of the Rams. He has kind of been their starting nose tackle for the last 2 years after Greg Gaines left for Tampa Bay. So this is kind of the guy who replaced Greg Gaines in LA. And he's been pretty good. Hasn't been over the top amazing. He hasn't been as good as Greg Gaines was. But I do think he's been good for them. And he has a good amount of experience playing that zero tech role in the A-gap. So you're not going to have to worry about him not being able to do it. Pro Football Focus thought he played quite good last year. Gave him a well above average, well, a little above average, but 63rd out of 219. So that's really good. We like that. I'm good with that, especially from this position. I think unless you're a superstar, it's really hard to crack the really high grades as a nose tackle. And the idea of a nose tackle superstar is kind of a misnomer anyway, because there aren't really nose tackle superstars anymore. There's maybe 1 or 2 in the whole league. You don't see very many Vince Wilforks anymore. You don't see very many Casey Hamptons. They don't really exist like they used to. By the way, 2023, his grade was great. 72, 30th out of 215 qualifying defensive linemen. He didn't play a lot. He only played 313 snaps, but what he did do was quite good. So this would be an appealing option. He's another guy that does not have a market page, a market value page. But I think you're probably looking at something like 1 year, $4 million, maybe 1 year, $3 million. I think it's the same idea as Greg Gaines, more or less. It's just not a hyper valued position, but I think Bobby Brown can get like 1 year, $4 million to prove it. And then maybe the next year he gets the long-term deal. We'll see. I don't think he's done enough to get the long-term deal yet, but it would not shock me if it was like 2 years, $8 million, 3 years, $12 million. I would be interested in that. I would be okay with that. It's not something that I feel like is some demanding need on our off-season to-do list, but this would be a reasonable option. So let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. We'll do another video with nose tackles in just a couple of hours. Keep an eye out for that. But let me know what you think about this crew. These are, in my estimation, the best options for the position if you want to address it this way. There's another way to address it that this year is probably better, but these are the veterans that will give you starting caliber play at nose tackle if everything goes according to plan, of course. You never know when somebody could disappoint, but these are the guys you would pay as a starter and bring in as a starter. Go Hawks.